Your enterprise AI isn't hallucinating because it's broken. It's hallucinating because it's blind. Most organizations today are treating Copilot like a fancy search bar for their OneDrive. They've spent months cleaning up SharePoint folders and tagging PDFs, thinking that's the finish line. But in reality, that's only 10% of your business. The other 90% is locked away in disconnected silos, legacy databases, and third-party tools that your AI can't even see. When you ask a model to summarize a project's health and it only has access to a PowerPoint deck from last Tuesday, it's going to give you an answer. It will sound professional, it will look structured, but it will be wrong. The model doesn't know about the high-priority ticket opened an hour ago or the budget freeze sitting in your ERP. Incomplete intelligence at scale isn't a tool, it's a liability. It creates a culture of confident guessing where your most expensive talent starts trusting a machine that's missing the most important half of the story. If your data isn't indexed and permissioned inside the Microsoft Graph, it effectively does not exist to your AI. We have to move beyond the phase of just chatting with a PDF. We are entering the era of the real-time business brain, and that brain requires a nervous system to function. The wall of static intelligence. The RAG honeymoon is over. For the last year, everyone's been obsessed with retrieval augmented generation. It was the magic trick that made LLMs useful. You point the model at a folder, it reads the files, and suddenly it knows your company policy. But as these pilots move into production, a massive crack is forming in the foundation. That crack is the reality of stale data. Traditional RAG relies on manual uploads or static folders. It's a snapshot in time. You're essentially teaching your AI by showing it a photograph of a moving car and asking it how fast the vehicle is going right now. This creates a knowledge lag that kills high-stakes decision-making. In a world where business moves at the speed of a Slack message, relying on a document that was last updated 48 hours ago is a recipe for disaster. Imagine your AI suggests an aggressive procurement action based on last week's quarterly report. It's a solid recommendation, except for one thing. It completely ignores the system update from this morning that flagged a supply chain disruption. By following the AI, you've just built a risk engine. You've automated a mistake. The old model of enterprise work assumed that people had the time to go hunting for context. You'd open 5 tabs, check the CRM, look at the project board, and then make a call. The new model assumes that context must be pushed to the AI. If the machine is going to assist you, it needs the same situational awareness that you have. This is why basic document grounding fails the modern enterprise. It lacks the connective tissue of live system telemetry. Most of your truth isn't sitting in a Word document, it's sitting in the state of your systems. It's the pending status on an invoice, the high priority flag on a customer ticket, or the exception noted in an audit log. When you only give the graph your documents, you're building a brain with a disconnected nervous system. The brain can think, but it can't feel the floor. It doesn't know if the building is on fire or if the front door is locked. It's just processing text in a vacuum. To bridge this gap, we have to change how we think about data. We aren't just moving files anymore. We are streaming reality. We need to move from a library model where the AI goes to a shelf to find a book to a sensor model where the AI is constantly fed the telemetry of the business. This shift is what separates a chatbot from an actual intelligence layer. One answers questions about the past, while the other helps you navigate the present. If you want the latter, you have to stop treating the Microsoft Graph as an optional storage bin and start treating it as the central nervous system of your entire operation. Without that live connection, you aren't scaling intelligence. You're just scaling the speed at which you miss the point. We need to tear down this wall of static information and start building the bridge to live indexed awareness. Blind spot 1, the ghost approval chain. Approvals are the actual lifeblood of your operations. They are the yes or no signals that determine if money moves, if code deploys, or if a contract gets signed. But here's the problem. In most organizations, these critical signals live in the shadows. They are buried in specialized procurement tools, hidden in legacy ticket systems, or trapped in the infinite scroll of an executive's email thread. To your AI, these approvals are ghosts. They simply don't exist in its world. This creates a specific dangerous phenomenon I call premature decision syndrome. It happens when a user asks the AI for a status update or a recommendation on a project phase. The AI looks at the available documents in SharePoint, it sees the project plan, it sees the draft invoice, it concludes that everything is ready to go. It tells the user to proceed. But it can't see the pending status sitting in your external procurement software. It doesn't know that the legal team flagged a specific clause in an external portal. The result isn't just a minor mistake, it's a complete breakdown of organizational trust. When the AI pushes a user toward an action that violates an existing workflow, you end up with duplicated work and bypassed controls. You have junior employees initiating orders that haven't been sanctioned simply because the intelligent assistant told them the path was clear. This isn't a failure of the LLM's logic, it's a failure of its visibility. You've asked it to be a project manager while keeping it locked in a room with only half the files. The cost of this missing context is measured in rework loops. Every time an AI-generated draft is rejected because it missed a rejected or on hold status from an external system, you lose the productivity gains you were promised. You're forced to add manual validation steps back into the process, which defeats the purpose of automation. You're essentially hiring a high-speed assistant and then hiring a human just to watch that assistant's every move, because the assistant is fundamentally uninformed about the rules of the house. Custom connectors are the only way to bridge this gap. They allow you to surface state and status alongside the raw content. When you build a connector to your procurement tool, you aren't just indexing the text of the purchase order, you're indexing the metadata of the approval chain. You are giving the graph a way to understand that a document's validity is tied to a specific system flag. This moves the AI from being a document reader to being a process-aware partner. It stops grounding itself in just the words in the document and starts grounding itself in the rules of the house. When a user asks, "Can we ship this?" the AI doesn't just say, "The plan says yes." It says, "The plan says yes, but the external shipping portal shows a pending safety approval." That is the difference between a chatbot and an enterprise intelligence layer. We have to stop assuming that permissions and statuses will magically sync. If the approval lives outside the graph, the AI is blind to the gatekeeper. By engineering these connections, you turn those ghost approvals into concrete data points. You ensure that the AI respects the boundaries of your business logic. You turn a confident guesser into a compliant advisor. This is how you stop the duplicated effort and start building an AI that actually understands how your business says go. Blind spot 2. The fragmented customer journey. Think about how a customer actually experiences your company. They don't see departments. They see a single entity. But your internal reality is a collection of isolated islands. Your CRM holds the sales data. Your ticketing system manages the support issues. Your delivery platform tracks the actual fulfillment. In the middle of this archipelago, you've dropped an AI assistant that only has a map of the Microsoft 365 island. This creates a biased response that can be devastating for your brand reputation. Imagine a scenario where a long-term client sends an email asking for a quote on a new project. Your AI sees that email in Outlook. It scans your SharePoint folders and sees the client's historical contracts. It then drafts a cheerful, proactive follow-up, suggesting a meeting to discuss the expansion. It sounds perfect. But there is a massive piece of context missing. The AI can't see the critical priority ticket sitting in your external service desk where that same customer is currently screaming about a system outage. Because that ticketing data isn't indexed in the graph, the AI drafts a polite sales pitch while the customer is actually in a crisis. When your account manager hits send on that AI-generated draft, you haven't just missed a sale. You've signaled to the customer that you are completely out of touch with their reality. We're trying to solve for rework and inconsistent customer experiences, but we can't do that if the AI is looking at fragments. Most organizations think they've solved this because they have integrations. They say, "Our CRM is integrated with our email." But here is the structural flaw you need to understand. Integrated is not the same as indexed. An integration might let you see a CRM record inside Outlook, but that doesn't mean the AI can reason across it. For the AI to connect the dots, to realize that a sales inquiry should be paused because of a support crisis, that data must live in the semantic index. It has to be part of the graph's unified world model. Without indexing, the AI is just a fast typist with no situational awareness. It's a specialized tool that can't see the bigger picture. By building custom connectors to these external islands, you give the graph a unified view of the handoff. You turn these fragments into a journey. When the ticketing system, the CRM, and the delivery logs are all indexed, the AI can finally see the customer lifecycle in its entirety. It becomes aware of the tension between a pending sale and an open ticket. It can warn the user, "I've drafted this follow-up, but you should know there's an unresolved high-priority issue in the service portal." This is how you move from automated replies to intelligent engagement. You stop the rework that happens when humans have to manually correct an AI that didn't know the full story. You prevent the cringeworthy moments where your technology makes you look disorganized. You're essentially giving your AI the ability to read the room. But to do that, you have to stop letting your customer data live on separate islands. You have to build the bridges that bring that context into the graph where the AI can actually use it. Awareness across the journey is the only thing that turns a fragmented mess into a competitive advantage. If you don't index the handoffs, you're just paying for an assistant that's perpetually missing the most important meeting of the day. Blind spot 3. Risk and exception exposure. Every organization runs on a hidden layer of exceptions that rarely make it into the official handbook. You have the standard policy everyone reads during onboarding, but then you have the reality of how work actually gets done. This reality is built on waivers, audit notes, special pricing agreements, and localized safety protocols. These aren't just extra documents to keep on file. They are the guardrails that keep your company from drifting into a legal or financial abyss. The problem is that these guardrails almost never live in the standard SharePoint folders your AI is currently reading. They live in niche systems, obscure databases, or legacy compliance vaults that sit far outside the Microsoft graph. When your AI recommends a standard action, it operates under the assumption that the general policy applies to everyone at all times. But in the enterprise, the exception is often more important than the rule. If your assistant suggests a standard shipping route to a new employee but fails to see the specific environmental waiver sitting in a regulatory portal, you haven't just made a mistake. You have created a compliance nightmare by using an intelligent tool to automate a violation. This is where the blind spot moves from being a productivity nuisance to being a structural threat to the entire business. Awareness is the fundamental difference between simple automation and true intelligence. Automation follows the script, while intelligence understands the context of that script. If the AI doesn't have a custom connector to those niche risk systems, it can't tell the difference between a routine task and a high-risk exception. It will give you the right answer for the wrong situation. It will confidently tell a sales rep to offer a standard discount to a client who actually has a no discount flag in a separate legal database. The AI isn't being rebellious or difficult, it is just fundamentally uninformed. We need to move the conversation from what the policy is to what the policy is for this specific case. That shift requires a custom connector that pulls exception data into the reasoning layer of the graph. When you index the audit notes and the waivers, you are giving the AI the ability to say stop. You are enabling it to recognize when a standard procedure shouldn't be followed. This is how you prove the ROI of your AI strategy to the board. It isn't just about how many emails you drafted faster, it is about the expensive compliance breaches you avoided because the AI was aware of a special status hidden in a legacy vault. Most teams ignore these niche systems because they are hard to reach or have low volume. They focus on the big SharePoint sites first. But that is exactly where the risk accumulates. The big sites contain the common knowledge, while the niche systems contain the critical exceptions. By ignoring the latter, you are effectively training your AI to be a confident amateur. This is someone who knows the basics, but doesn't know where the landmines are buried. Engineering these connectors isn't just a technical task for the IT department, it is a risk mitigation strategy. It is about ensuring that as you scale AI across the workforce, you aren't also scaling the probability of a catastrophic oversight. You are grounding the machine's logic in the actual complexity of your operations. When the AI can see the audit note alongside the project plan, it stops being a liability and starts being a protector. You turn the blind spot into a strategic advantage, ensuring that every AI-driven action is not just fast, but fundamentally safe. This is how you build a business brain that actually knows the stakes. The architecture of live ingestion. If we are going to stop the guessing, we have to talk about how the bridge actually gets built. This isn't about bulk data movement or old-school migrations. We are building a high-fidelity pipeline that feeds the reasoning engine. To do this, I use a framework called the Event Reasoning Orchestration Model. It is the blueprint for turning a silent database into an active participant in your AI's world. The first pillar is the connection. This is your physical link to the source, but it is more than just a pipe. You aren't just dumping a bucket of data into the graph. You are mapping identities. This is where most engineering teams stumble. If your external system identifies a user as employee 99 and Microsoft Entra ID knows them as janedoe@company.com, the AI can't connect the person to the permission. You have to normalize that identity at the source. Before a single byte of data moves, you must ensure that every record carries the DNA of your corporate identity system. If the AI can't verify who owns the data, it won't show it to anyone. The second pillar is the schema. Think of this as the dictionary for your connector. You have to tell the graph what it is looking at. Is this a status field? Is it a due date? Is it a critical exception? If you don't define these properties clearly, the AI just sees a wall of text. It might find the keyword, but it won't understand the significance. By crafting a rich schema, you allow the semantic index to rank information properly. You are telling the brain to look at this specific field first when the user asks about risk. You are effectively teaching the machine how to prioritize the telemetry you are feeding it. The third pillar is the access control list, or ACL. This is the security trimming. In the world of AI, permissions are the only thing standing between a productivity boom and a massive data leak. Your connector must replicate the source permissions with absolute fidelity. If a user can't see a record in the original SQL database, they must not see it in a Copilot response. We use Entra ID-driven entitlements to ensure that every query is trimmed in real time. If the AI sees more than the user is allowed to see, you haven't built a tool. You have built a vulnerability. Then there is the question of speed. You have to define your latency service level objectives. Not everything needs to be near real time. Your archival audit logs can probably handle a 24-hour batch sync. But your pending approval states, those need to be streamed. We are moving away from the nightly crawl and toward event-driven ingestion. When a status changes in your ERP, that change should trigger an immediate update to the graph index. This ensures the AI isn't working on yesterday's news. The technical shift here is profound. We are moving from data migration to semantic indexing. You aren't moving the data to store it. You are moving it so the AI can reason across it. You are building a map of your business logic that the LLM can navigate. This architecture is what turns a collection of silos into a unified intelligence layer. It is the difference between having a bunch of disconnected sensors and having a fully functional dashboard. By mastering this ingestion model, you stop being a data plumber and start being the architect of your company's collective awareness. This is the foundation of the real-time business brain. Governance as a competitive advantage. We have to stop viewing governance as a series of no votes from the legal department. In the era of the Microsoft graph, governance is actually your greatest competitive advantage. Why? Because the organization that can trust its data the most is the one that can move the fastest. If you are constantly second-guessing your AI because you aren't sure if it's respecting regional boundaries or user permissions, you will naturally tap the brakes, you'll limit the rollout, you'll stifle the very ROI you're chasing. The problem is that we used to treat over-permissioned file shares as quiet risks. But in a world where AI is actively hunting for context to answer a prompt, that same file share becomes a ticking bomb. Least privilege is not a suggestion anymore. It is the bedrock of a safe AI strategy. Your connectors must be built on a simple rule. If a user shouldn't have it, the AI shouldn't show it. We use Entra ID-driven entitlements because they provide a single source of truth. We don't want manual access requests floating around for AI visibility, and we certainly don't want to manage permissions in two different places. We want the system to know exactly what a person is allowed to reason across based on their role and identity. Then there is the issue of data residency. Just because information is indexed in the graph doesn't mean regional boundaries have dissolved. It's in the index is never an excuse to ignore where that data is physically stored or who has jurisdiction over it. Your governance model must account for the EU data boundary and other sovereign requirements. You need to be able to prove that while your AI is aware of the data, that data hasn't migrated to a region where it doesn't belong. This leads us to a fundamental shift in ownership. Every custom connector you build needs more than just a developer. It needs a business owner. This person is responsible for the quality standard and the lifecycle policy of that data. They decide when a connector is retired and when the schema needs to be updated to reflect a change in the business. Without this ownership, your graph becomes a digital landfill. It turns into a collection of abandoned sensors providing stale telemetry to a confused brain. The reality of 2026 is that your AI is only as good as your governance model. If you treat connectors as a one-time IT project, you will fail. But if you treat them as a continuous business awareness strategy, you will win. You are building a framework of trust that allows your employees to use these tools with total confidence. You're ensuring that the collective intelligence of the firm is governed by the same rigor as your financial audits. That trust is what allows you to scale while your competitors are still stuck in committee meetings, terrified of what their AI might accidentally reveal. Your homework is simple. Identify the one system where missing context is currently causing the most rework. Don't try to boil the ocean. Find one high-impact connector, maybe it's your procurement state or your CRM ticket status, and bring it into Outlook or Teams. Prove that awareness beats simple automation every single time. If this shift from static RAG to live telemetry changed how you think about enterprise intelligence, follow me, Mirko Peters, on LinkedIn. Share this with your team, especially if you're tired of making high-stakes decisions on partial context. Awareness is what turns a fancy chatbot into an actual business brain. It's time to stop guessing and start seeing. Let's build the nervous system your enterprise deserves.